Hello and welcome again to CSE 505, Foundations of Information Technology. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of this class. Thanks for being part of CUW's MSIT program, if I haven't said that enough. And one thing I know I haven't said enough is, this is hard stuff. There's a lot of it, and much of it is difficult. Hopefully I told you the first day that graduate school is hard and IT is difficult, but anything worthwhile and worth doing well is probably going to be hard and difficult. If this were easy, it would not be in demand. You would not be able to get a good job or have a nice vocation. People would not pay you large sums of money to do this if anybody could do it. Now, I don't think it's a thing that if you really wanted to, you couldn't. It's not one of those things like, for example, when I was 17 years old, my goal in life was to be a professional baseball player. And then my coach said, have another goal in life. Okay? It didn't matter. I mean, I could will that and practice as much as I wanted to, you know. Hitting a fastball was no problem. Hitting a curveball was a real problem, and some other things. And I probably wasn't the fastest person out there. So unlike some of those things where, I mean, God gives some people certain kinds of physical abilities and others, I think that many people, if they really applied themselves, could do extremely well in computer science and information technology. But you absolutely have to apply yourself. But I also believe that certain people are wired for information technology. And by wired, I mean, you know, different people have different skills and natural abilities, both physically and mentally. There are certain folks that are just able to do IT a little more naturally than others, and that very likely applies to everybody here. But even though we have some natural gifts and skills and abilities in IT, that doesn't mean it's easy, right? It's still a lot of work. So thank you for doing that. I guess the good news is after today, we're 3/4 of the way through this course. So that's nice. And in just a few more weeks, for those of us on campus, this course will be done, and you got one down, and there's just a few more to go. Okay, thanks for playing along with me. We're in the midst of talking about the origins of information technology. And last time we took a look at specific historical development of IT. We ran 4 threads through this tapestry known as information technology. And then we looked at the origin of a computer. Oops, don't look at that yet. Looked at the origin of a computer, etc. Today I want to focus on some topics that I believe also relate to history and origins, but maybe in a secondary way. A number of topics, concepts, and ideas that have what I consider deep historic roots in information technology. Let me give you one example of what I'm talking about, and that's the field of biometrics. The word biometrics has 2 different root words in it. The root bio, like biology, means life. Metric we know as a measurement system. So biometrics is just somehow measuring living systems. In the field of information technology, one place that we see biometrics is in security. What you see here is a retina scan, an iris scanner, and then a fingerprint scanner. Although the iris scanning is not as mainstream as the fingerprint scanner, today even mobile devices, iPhone 5S came with you know, that home key as the, and there's been many other pieces of technology to do that. The advantage, of course, is if I can secure my devices with a biometric, then I don't have to remember things. In our data security and information assurance class, we're going to tell you there are conceptually several different ways to handle security. And one way, the classic way of passwords, that's something that you know. And the problem with that, it's easy to remember, especially if you have a lot of passwords. Well, another way to secure things is with something that you are. Your fingerprint, as far as we know, is somewhat unique. So if we can interface that way and verify that you are the user that you say you are, it's not only easier for us as a user, but it might be more secure because passwords can be hacked, passwords can be stolen, so passwords can be guessed. Although we've all seen the spy shows, right, where they lift a fingerprint and then put it on there, or, you know, organized crime chops off your thumb and uses that. In many cases, this might be a little better. Another form of biometrics, and it's used for other things besides just security issues, is face recognition. There are actually two subjects here, face detection and face recognition. But face recognition is given an image, given a picture of a face, trying to determine who that is. And this has been in the news somewhat. You know what? It's not going to come up, I'm sure, when I go there. We've talked about Google Glass in this class. You know what that is? Yeah. And exactly. Right now, there are several different companies that are integrating a face recognition system into Glass such that you look at them, you wink, that takes a picture right now. What are you doing? Okay. Or you do it some other way, and then it will compare that image and try to determine who that is. That's good if you forget names a lot, I suppose. It gets... Yeah, Facebook does face recognition, doesn't it? Yeah. When you upload an image to Facebook, it'll ask, so who is this, right? Yeah, that whole... And that's what's happening there also. Yeah. And there's a number of... It seems neat, it's interesting, it's exciting. As a matter of fact, face detection is a personal research area of mine. But it can also be a little creepy and scary, right? You know, being able to map people's movements and things like that. Okay. I want to show you, as you can tell, this is me, but it's me from a number of years ago before my hair turned gray or white or whatever color it is now. But about 10 years ago, there was this face recognition system. It was one of the first online ones. It's because I was very interested in it. I was trying it out. And this was at a site called MyHeritage. It still exists, and you can still do this, but they do it now by throwing on some spyware onto your computer, so I can't just say that you should do this. But they had this little applet that would say, upload your picture, and we'll compare it to a database of famous people, and we'll see who you most look like. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And the biggest match at about 60%, I don't know what that means, was Tim Curry. You don't know Tim Curry. He's an American actor. Actually, I like him a lot. He was in one of my favorite movies of all time, which was Muppet Treasure Island. Okay, you have to look it up on YouTube. It's kind of a... Muppets are a little pup... Well, anyway. I kind of liked it. So I said, great. Okay? And I don't know if it's just because we have a beard or hopefully that's not it. So I said, okay, who else do I look like? The next person it told me was Michael Moore. Now, again, you may not know Michael Moore, but he's an American film producer. I don't like him nearly as much as Tim Curry. But anyway, okay. And I said, who else do I look like? And it said Saddam Hussein. So then I stopped. I was afraid what the next one might be. It was going downhill from there. But face recognition is a very interesting technology. And this was just kind of fun. But the technology behind it, the algorithms behind it, this is kind of interesting stuff. And again, you could probably realize that we can use face detection and recognition for security issues too, right? We see that in the movies all the time, right? I mean, the secret agent walks up and takes a video and it allows them through. So we're really moving from the realm of science fiction into the realm of almost mainstream technology. Let's take a look at some current events. And Tosh, I don't know if that was you that mentioned before we need to look at the IEEE news site. And absolutely. The IEEE is one of the two major professional societies for information technologists. ACM is one. And that video you saw last time was produced by the ACM, that Giant Brains, the machine that changed the world. That was an ACM production. And the other major society is the IEEE. The IEEE is the older of the two because it originally focused on electrical and electronic devices, so they've been around for more than 100 years, many members, and one of the largest subgroups in the IEEE is their computer society. They have a website, it's computer.org, and they also provide a news feed and other kinds of things. So I thought we'd just jump there, take a look and see what they... Okay. So where's the news? Okay. Okay. Spectrum is their flagship hub. Computer Society, Spectrum is the IEEE one. The Computer Society has their own. The Spectrum one would be more generalized to, everything. Yeah, electrical engineering, et cetera, This is not my news feed. Where am I going here? Portal Web. Oh, yeah, it's because I was logged in someplace else. Okay, come on. Let's see about. We'll just have to make up our own news if this doesn't work. Search for news. Yeah, I mean, I could log in. There is a way. You don't have to be a member to get the news.
You get the subscription.
Yeah, okay, it can push stuff to you, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could go to IEEE. What's my backup one here? Is that just Yahoo again? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll go here. Sorry. All right. Again, I don't exactly like the new redesign here. Chromecast versus Roku. I guess nobody talks about Apple TV anymore. Do you know what Chromecast and Roku are? They're great. They're digital streaming devices that will allow you to take internet stream and then display it on your television, for example. Chromecast has undercut Roku in price. They both have lots of content that they can stream, and they have some special stuff just for them. Okay, who wins? By the way.
Apple TV off the race?
Well, I don't know. I actually have an Apple TV sitting in this case down here, but I don't know if Apple is really serious about Apple TV or not.
Sure.
Okay.
IEEE, you have to go to Computing Now.
Computing Now?
Computing Now.
Okay. All right. Computing Now dot?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Computer.org/portal/web.
Oh, okay. Then Computing Now. Okay. We're not, yeah. Sounds good. Let's do Chromecast. So the way this worked, Roku, the Roku Corporation, had a box, a couple different levels, and U.S. retail price of, the low-end one was $50, and the next step was $75, and then $100 or something like that. Chromecast, which you can imagine has the word Chrome in it, is a Google product, came in just as a USB-looking like stick and undercut Roku. I think its U.S. retail was $40. So now Roku is coming back with another one. Hopefully that will be at the same price point or whatever. Oh, here. Chromecast costs $35. The newest Roku costs a hair under $50. About, yes.
Cost effective.
Yep. And this is what we see in technology all the time, right? Smaller, faster, cheaper, hopefully better.
Apple TV was
Right. Apple TV is $99, exactly. And then the other thing, it's not just the device. You need the hardware, of course. You need some software to go along with it, but what these folks are really selling is also content. So, I mean, although Netflix can go anywhere, and the same with Hulu Plus, you need the plus aspect of Hulu to be able to send it to your television. Anybody can do Hulu normally just on a mobile or desktop device. But then many of these companies are also trying to strike deals with other content providers and say, give us some interesting stuff here to do. Personally, I really wish that I had a fast internet connection at home. This would be the only way I would do stuff. I live out in the sticks and I can barely... I do have a Roku device. I would love to get rid of my satellite TV subscription service. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to do that. At the end of this year, it's just going away. The only thing I watch is sports. I don't care about anything else. It's really hard to stream that, but personally, I'm really tired of paying, $70 a month just to watch television. So that's going to stop. If I had a fast connection, then I would do this. See, I don't know about you, but I don't watch a whole lot of television shows. In this season, there was only one show that interested me at all, and that was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I don't care if I watch that. I don't even know what night it's on. I don't care if I watch it Tuesday nights at 8 or whenever it's on. I didn't mind watching it on Hulu, and I didn't even mind, just sleeping through the commercials that came up. It was free. The problem is my connection home is so slow that, I'd have to watch it here at lunchtime and don't have time for that. Yeah, okay, good. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a fan? Yeah. Okay.
How did the signals come?
Yeah, this is internet connectivity. It's an HTTP. Okay. Yeah, it's
is it using internet or using the Wi-Fi?
Oh, okay. Well, are you talking about me personally? Okay. Well,
It's the Roku TV.
Roku is a wireless device. Did it have a plug in it? So, I mean, it goes wirelessly from my router to there and sends it. So, I mean, that's plenty fast enough. Trust me. I don't know. I shouldn't say. I mean, my internet connection is so slow that only thing I could see is standard def, and I don't care if it looks fuzzy or not. I just watch it. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The signals for example, Roku is being limited by your house.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. The internet connectivity, and again, I was talking specifically about me because I live out in the country. I have a little provider that I have a microwave transceiver that points at their tower that's 2 miles away. The fastest that I could conceivably do would be 10 megabits per second. That doesn't happen. Okay. On good days, on really, really good days, I'm 3.5 megabits per second. On bad days, I'm 0.9. So if you try to stream a television show, I mean, at 3 megabits per second, I can do standard def, regular TV type of stuff. Okay. Could I stream, a Blu-ray quality latest motion? No, never. Okay, it just won't happen. So yeah, you are limited. Now, university here, I mean, our connection is much faster. Many people at home, if you've live in a subdivision, you've got lots of options, perhaps.
So if you do have high speed, you will cancel the cable?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. But I would love to. To me, I could stream everything that I cared about, with a few exceptions. I mean, I'm still going to do over-the-air digital from the local channels because I want to be able to watch football on a Sunday and things like that. There's some things I won't be able to see. Some sports I won't be able to see anymore, but oh well. I don't have much time for that anyway. Yeah. All right, what else is in the news here? So now you know what those things are. The rise of the nanny gadget. When people talk about a nanny gadget, they talk about devices that will either nag you or spy on you or spy on other people for you. Are you brushing your teeth properly, eating too fast? Are you slouching? Okay. The Oral-B Smart Toothbrush. Exactly. So here's the smart toothbrush with your iPhone app. Yeah, I think things are maybe out of control. Okay, maybe things are a little out of control. No, I don't want that at all. Unlock. Okay. We're going to actually be talking about buying software today and buying hardware. And interestingly, you buy hardware and you really can't do whatever you want to do with it, right? So in the iOS world, it's usually called jailbreaking, right? When you try to get beyond the bounds set for you by the operating system so you could do other things. I mean, quite frankly, I haven't done this because I want to make sure that everything I do is above board and very legal and things like that. What kind of example would I be if I did not?
But I think, last year, I mean, there is a judgment that the court, they say jailbreak is okay or not. I think they have settled.
Yeah, it's still, to me at least, it's still not exactly clear. Yes, there have been some judgments that say certain aspects of jailbreaking are legal. If you have an Android-based device, that term is not used. It's usually called rooting your phone. Okay? Similar idea. How do I get by the operating system to do other things? For example, to me on the iPhone, it would make I want to be able to answer my phone by pressing this button rather than swiping across there. I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense. You can't do that, though, because you can't get at that button through anything unless you jailbreak your phone. Okay, so not going to happen. Anyway, so unlocking consumer choice, wireless, stretching the law, you know, SIM cards, phones locked to things and all that kind of stuff. So very interesting. Interesting stuff.
They can't do that actually because many different patents are owned by different companies, so just a single company can't decide
Yeah.
to use law.
Right. And that's a good point, too. Even if company A says, okay, there are so many other aspects and parts of your phone.
SIM card reader,
Right. That who knows. Yeah. Good.
well, that's a good thing. We can use.
Good. All right. Folks at a distance, you've seen me enough now. I'm gone. Folks here on campus, all right. So, let's talk about some issues in IT that I think have a connection to history. You'll see some of this very explicitly, others you might have to just fill in the blanks. So we're still into this unit about origins, and although we've seen the historic development already, let's take a look at some other current issues that are really shaped by history. Cool. This brush works just like the one in Photoshop. Yeah, thanks for laughing. What does make that interesting is, originally, of course, many applications took familiar themes and tasks. In the world of HCI, the concept is called an affordance. Took familiar themes and tasks and then digitized that. So yes, in original drawing packages and packages today, there is a pencil. Well, of course, it's not a physical pencil, but it just, as you move your mouse stylus or your finger on the screen or whatever, it follows it as if a pencil would do that. So yeah, this is hilarious, right? Somebody who grew up with Photoshop now is actually doing real, whatever that means, physical media art. Oh, yeah, we're... All right. So, last time we were at Roman numeral 0, which is all about the history. So today, Roman numeral 1, issues in IT with historical roots. Let me remind you again what I think the big idea of history ought to be. The meaning of anything is linked to its origin. If you want to understand something, you need to see where it came from. So I'll make this explicit with a couple of these here, but I'll just sort of ask you to think about it also. The meaning of anything is linked to its origin. To understand what's happening today, you've got to look at its historic development. at its past history. For a user, the key to the effective use of a system is found in the I/O activity. How the user interacts with the system, exactly. The first computers, and you remember seeing on the video the ENIAC, and you remember seeing how it was, quote, programmed by wires. One of the original programmers, Kay Mockley, was interviewed there, if you recall, and she was saying, you know, there were no manuals for how to program. So some of the instructors there taught us how to read schematics, and then from that we knew what each component did, and then when somebody said, this is what we want the machine to do, then we knew how to run the wires just right. In the first generation of computers, there was absolutely no distinction between a creator of a computer and a user of a computer. In order to use a computer, you had to be well versed enough such that you could actually create it. Right? I mean, as Kay Mockley said, we were reading schematics of the hardware. Okay? Now, although they didn't build it, they could have. They understood what each vacuum tube did and what an accumulator was and everything else. There was no such thing as just a computer user today. For example, today, how many people know how their mobile device works? Not very many. I'm not talking about you guys, you know. But how many normal, of the, I don't know, okay? How many cell phones are there in the world? Okay? There are 7 billion people. There are likely 7 billion phones, but not everybody has one, but still, some people have 2 or 5 or whatever. There are billions of those. Yeah. And, well, that's the other thing. And how many people, I mean, if you just walk down the street there, how many people would have the faintest idea what's happening? No. They're just users of technology. There was no such thing as a user in 1950. The creators and the users were exactly the same thing.
Because they were the only ones who knew how to use it.
Exactly. Because it was, well, we'll get there. Yeah, okay. What is it that allowed the separation of creator, hey, I built the computer, and so now I'm going to put it to use, to this separation of creator and user? And the answer, the rise of I/O. What was the input and the output of the original ENIAC? Well, the input was both wires and punch cards, and the output, you remember what they said, the blinking lights were just for show? You know, they just did that for the television cameras and stuff. So again, it was ticky-tacky, something there. Yeah. It was really hard. Let's see, is it that one or is it the one I'm going to show you today? I'm trying to remember. They were talking about one of the early English computers in Great Britain with, was it Wilkes? And he was talking, I don't know if it's this one. Remember there was this panel, and there were just, you know, like lines on it, and that was the output? And somebody had to figure out, yeah.
CRT?
Yeah, it wasn't even a CRT. Okay. No, it was just, it was sort of like an Etch-a-Sketch. Okay, and things were being drawn on there, and you had to measure stuff. Okay, the moral of the story is, without I/O, the only people that can use a computer are the people who created computers. Okay, so let's talk about the user interface. If you compare a user interface today to even a user interface, I don't know, 7 years ago, things are pretty different. Although, when I worked at Hewlett-Packard in the 1980s, we worked on and produced, manufactured, and sold touchscreen computers. And as far as I know, I think we were the first folks to do that. Touchscreens have been around for a long time. They really haven't become mainstream for users until the rise of mobile devices, right? The first iPhone was 2007. That's 7 years ago. And since then, you know, tablets are after that, and touch interface, etc. And now people are extremely familiar with touch interface. It wasn't always that way. So what is the historic development of the user interface? The initial user interface was no user interface. Right? There was no such thing because you were just the creator. Once we did try to get computers to go mainstream, then very early user interfaces were built upon the concept of a prompt. Some of you remember DOS. Some of you may currently work in Unix, Linux that uses a shell that's just a prompt-based thing. If you work on the Mac OS, maybe you drop down to terminal and do some things there. If you work in Windows, maybe you drop to the command window, etc. A prompt-based user interface. So that was the first iteration. Prompt-based user interfaces are better than nothing, but folks quickly decided that it could be better than that. The next iteration was a menu base. See, the problem with a prompt user interface, if you've worked in DOS before, you know that it throws up a cryptic little something or the other, typically followed by a greater than sign, and just sits there. And folks will ask, well, what does it want? And my response is it wants you to give it a command. And the very next question is, what can I tell it? Right? That's the problem. Yeah, what do I do? A menu-based user interface, then, the next part of the development, would then present you with, here are your options. And many early applications were that way. And we still see that today, right? Even in Office. It is really a menu-driven system. You have the main level on your tabs. You have the sub-level on the ribbon. And you can go deeper than that. So you don't have to guess what the command to spell check is called in Office Word. You just find it on the menu.
You just forward over it.
Okay, right. And if you want to do a keyboard shortcut, you can rest over it. Balloon Help will come up and say it's F7. Yeah. The next incarnation was the graphical user interface. So rather than just listing things as words, there was some other kind of visual representation for it. I mean, a windowing system employed in Windows and the Mac OS and many Unix shells today, X, etc. That's a graphical user interface. Today, you know, we have multimodal things, touch and voice and whatever. Okay, user interface. Interesting stuff? But see what's happened. And this is a good thing, but it's opened up other issues. Today, people who use computers, you don't have to know anything about how they work internally, right? This user interface has abstracted, it's hidden all the nitty-gritty stuff. You don't have to know anything about ones and zeros. You don't have to know anything about memory management. You don't have to know anything about multi-threading. You don't have to know anything. You just use it. On the one hand, that's a great thing. Yes, exactly. And many children do. I have some friends, my kids are older. They're about your age, and they have their own kids, and they always tell me stories of their friends or their own kids, you know. They see a book, and they're doing this to it. You know, they're doing this gesture. They want to make the letters on the book bigger, you know, because they're used to looking at mommy's phone and doing that kind of stuff. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, you do it to a book all you want to, but if it's paper, it's not going to happen, right?
People imagine doing that in a web data technology.
Exactly. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. A couple other things. I'll let you fill in the blanks here. Even though you don't have to know how a computer system works to use it because of the great advances in a user interface, that does not mean that you can stop thinking. You do have to supply intelligence, and we're talking about from a user now, in order to use the system effectively. And this is what I tell general users. You want to become a better problem solver. You want to become a more effective problem solver. Here's how to do that. As a matter of fact, sometimes people come up to me and say, how can I become a better problem solver? How can I become a better user and consumer of technology? And the, pardon me?
Imagination.
Yes, that helps. That's the one I'm going to focus on. Okay? What I'm going to focus on, and those are all good. I mean, you're absolutely right. What I'm going to focus on is this concept of practice to gain experience. But what I tell my users is, in order to become better at technology, you can't just play around with it. You know, sometimes people tell me, well, I'll learn this just by playing around with it. Technology is a tool for solving problems. So what you have to do is actually practice using either real or at least real-looking problems. So, although I know that some of the problems I've given you are not real, if you think about creating the first macro that you did, that wasn't a real problem. Or even the second macro is not necessarily a real problem, but it's real-looking. It has the elements of something that would actually be useful. So, rather than just playing around with it, if you actually solve problems, I mean, that's the way to learn things. All right. I'm telling you this not so much because you need to hear it, but because I want you to remember it for your own users. When you're the IT professional, many IT departments want to do training, and I'm very much against training. What you want to do is show your users how to solve problems. Give them realistic scenarios to work on, and in such a way that if something goes wrong, it doesn't mess everything up. But it also needs to look live and real and meaningful. We'll see intelligence again in a minute. Okay, let's divide the I/O into input and then output. Users need to keep in mind, again, we'll tag off on intelligence, that useful data is required to create information. Something that goes into a computer, we're just going to call data. But I'm going to caution my users that you need useful data. Useful data has three characteristics. Useful data, oops, I don't have them. Useful data has to be accurate. That makes sense, right? If it's not true, useful data has to be timely. It has to be up to date. If you're creating a financial calculator and you're basing it upon interest rates from 1987, it's not very useful. The third attribute of useful data is something that users sometimes forget, and that is useful data has to be input reliably. Just because I know that this is good, useful data, if something happens in the user interface, if something goes wrong as I'm going through the process of getting that data from me into the computer, then it hasn't been input reliably. This happens often enough that there's an acronym associated with it. GIGO, G-I-G-O. The acronym GIGO, as you know, means garbage in, garbage out. If something happens such that we give a computer garbage data, bad data, there is no way that the computer system can detect that, typically, and then end up with good information that comes out. If the data that goes in is bad, the information that comes out is bad, this, of course, is a user concern. We need to be aware of it in IT, right? Because sometimes the problems with the system are not problems with the hardware or software. They're problems with what the user has entered into the system. What Geigo is saying, and make no mistake, is if the input is bad, there's no chance of good output. It's not like, well, 50% of the time the output could be good, or 27% of the time the output could. If your data is bad, there is no way you're getting good information out. Computers are dumb. They blindly follow instructions. They cannot think or reason. If we input incorrect data, the computer's just going to process that. It's going to multiply or compare or subtract or whatever. Give us an answer. It's not going to be right. From a user perspective, there are a number of ways that data could be used in a system. From a user perspective, there are a number of ways that data could be used in a system. One way that data could be used is as the source material of processing. What I mean by source material is the data is going to be processed or changed into useful information. For example, calculating payroll. The computer system that calculates your paycheck, it's going to take some data. Like, let's assume you're an hourly employee, so you get paid by the hour. Your hourly pay rate, the number of hours you work this pay period, your deduction data, and a few other things. And then it's going to convert that into information. Fundamentally multiply the hours worked times the pay rate, subtract the deduction, subtract taxes, and then that's your net pay. Another use of data, though, is as a command. Data can be used to control the computer. You know, here's where things get tougher for a user. In the current user interface, in the multimodal user interfaces, it's really hard to distinguish data and commands because we manipulate everything, right? You touch everything. How does it do that? You know, is that data? Is that a command? Yeah. But a command is another form of data. Yeah, a simplistic example in Office Word, when you issue the command to print, yep, you're entering data, right? But you're just using that to control the computer. It's a control a processing operation. Yeah, a macro, exactly. Third use of data, request information. Sometimes we use data to locate or find some associated information. And a classic example is a search engine. When you use your favorite search engine and locate or find a keyword, you're using that data to request information. I'm making this explicit because I think you can see that to help users, we really need to make sure they understand these distinctions. Otherwise, you can have some problems in the user interface. The flip side of data is information. In a computer system, we're concerned about useful information. Just because it comes out of a computer doesn't mean it's useful information. Useful information, first of all, is only created by the intelligent design and use of a system. So I want to connect intelligence to information. Useful information is only created by the intelligent design and use of a system. This is information theory. And I hope we talked about this before, but just in case we haven't, Information theory connects two of the grand ideas of IT together. Information theory says intelligence is necessary to create information. You could also look at it the other way. You could say, well, if I have information, that must have come from intelligence. Intelligence is necessary to create information. I think this seems perfectly logical. Let me work an analogy or two with you. Intelligence is necessary to create information. Let's look at it the other way, first of all. Think about a book. You know, I probably shouldn't choose a textbook here. Just think about a book that you read for fun or enjoyment or just because you wanted to. This is a favorite author of mine. This is Dorothy Sayers. She was a mid-20th century British author. This is one of her books, The Mind of the Maker. When you're done with that book, you set it down and you turn to your friend and you say, "That was a great book. I'd like to read more that she or he wrote." And your friend turns to you and says, "She or he wrote? What are you talking about?" "You know, the author." And your friend says, "What do you mean, author?" "Well, the person who wrote the book." And your friend says, have you ever met the author?" "No." "You ever met J. Glenn Brookshire?" "I don't think you have." "Did you see Glenn Brookshire write the book down?" "No." "Then how do you know the book had an author?" And you say, "That's ridiculous. I know it had." And here's how you prove it. Information theory. These books are full of information. It is meaningful constructs to you, right? Information only comes from intelligence. Books have an author. Books don't randomly assemble in warm little ponds in northern Wisconsin, right? Mainly because there are no warm ponds in northern Wisconsin, but yeah. Okay? By the way, we can apply this same idea to the grandest of scales. In the very first verse of the biblical text, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," that's really just a statement of information theory. It's telling you the origin of all the information content in the universe. Every cell in your body, wow, I don't know, there are a lot of them, right? 120 trillion in your brain. Yeah, 120 trillion connections, probably only 10 trillion cells in the brain. So, I don't know, 100 some odd trillion cells in your body. Every one of those has an enormous amount of information content. It's encoded in a pretty fantastic way. DNA is both program and data, right? Where'd that come from? The only legitimate scientific explanation is an intelligence source. Okay, that's information theory. We've given you a brain scan and we can't find anything. It might be hard to see a thought, I guess. I don't know. Thanks. All right. There were some attributes for useful data. I want to make it even more explicit, the attributes for useful information. There are two characteristics that you need to consider for useful information. Useful information is accurate and formatted. Now, accurate makes perfect sense, right? If the numbers that come out, if the machine didn't multiply the pay rate by the hours worked properly, if it's inaccurate, well, then that's not useful information. But formatted, sometimes people forget about this. By formatted, I mean the output is displayed in a meaningful manner. Just because the right numbers come out does not mean we have useful information. It needs to be displayed in a way that is understandable, meaningful for the user. Let me give you an example. This is from one of my prior lives. When I worked at Hewlett-Packard, I consulted with a large electric utility in California because they were buying one of the first laser printers. I was dealing with the group that did laser printers. And this is a long time ago. And they were really excited because they were going to put their logo. They were going to get the laser printer to print their logo on the bill. Their logo is Mr. Happy Light Bulb. Now, if you look, you see he's upside down. That's for a story later today, and I'll get to that. But they were all excited because they were going to print their logo. And so the programmers changed the billing software. They changed the bill. They did a pilot, a test run. And this is what they sent out to customers. Now, when customers got the bill, they really didn't care about Mr. Happy Light Bulb over here. Okay? They do what you would do, and that is they'd look in the box. And when customers looked in the box, they said, "What? What are you trying to tell me here? Are you trying to tell me I owe $35,000? What is this?" Well, let me show you how the bill was changed by the programmers, and then I'll tell you what happened. When the pilot was changed, the new bill looked like this. Now, this is what happened. And I can remember sitting in this meeting, and the programmer saying, "We don't know why people are upset because all the right numbers came out." And they're correct. All the right numbers came out. The problem was there were two different things here slammed together. This month you used 357 kilowatt hours. Therefore, you owe us $42.39. So when some of us made the suggestion to change to this, one programmer said, "Well, I don't get it. That's all the right numbers. Our software is correct. All you're talking about is formatting." But exactly, see? This the user understands. Oh, I send you a check for $42.39. So here's the moral of the story. Just because the right numbers come out does not mean that you have useful information. Useful information has to be both accurate and formatted. Okay, here's my cartoon. Are you ready? Time and temperature, 8:33:06 p.m. degree. Somewhere there is the correct time, and somewhere there's the correct temperature. Now, you know it's not Wisconsin because there's not a minus sign. You need to have a negative sign there to show the correct temperature. But, yeah, but what's what? Exactly. You can tell me all day long that's accurate. I don't care. I need to know what, is it 83 degrees at 3:06 p.m.? Or is it 33 degrees at 8:06 p.m.? Or I don't know. I don't know. Good. All right. I just want you to think about this now. I don't want to spend the time, a lot of dead air time on the recording here. But I would like you to think about these questions. What would you say are the 6 most important topics in IT? Now, I'm not asking you to think about the things that we've covered in this class so far and pick 6, but just, it could be. Of course, we haven't covered everything yet. But just from your perspective, what do you think are the 6 most important topics? They could be big and broad, like cloud computing. They could be very specific, like iteration in a programming language. Second thing, I'd just like you to think about it a little bit, and then we'll engender some discussion later, just so you know it's coming. What are 6 things an IT professional must know? This could be a specific technology, like, I don't know, the Windows operating system. Yeah, I guess what I'd like to do is move from the more abstract in the first question, the more general, to maybe more specific. So maybe, for example, and again, I'm almost hesitant to say things because then people think, well, that's the answer. Most important topics in IT. Let's say programming. Let's say programming is what you consider a... So what should I know? Well, I should know C# or something like that. Yeah. Now, they don't have to be a direct correspondence, okay? For example, you might say a really important thing for an IT professional to know is interpersonal communication. But that might not be one of the 6 top topics in IT. They can be related, but they don't have to. And then finally, think about the classical IT support department. How can or how does that benefit a company? I've got to give you just a little bit of background. We talked about this before, but just one time. When we defined information technology, I mentioned that IT could be a department in a company. And many companies have an IT support department. And this is not just companies that are tech companies, but almost every company, right? Concordia University, Wisconsin has an IT support department. If you went to, almost any business in the greater Milwaukee area that has 50 employees or more, the odds of you finding an IT department of at least several people is very high. If you go across the road to St. Mary's Ozaki, they have an IT department, both locally right there, and they're part of a larger consortium, and they have IT folks. By the way, Columbia St. Mary's Ozaki, they're a really good place. If you ever had to get sick and went there, yeah, that's a really high-class place over there, I think. If you went down the road to Charter Manufacturing, they got a big plant in Saukville that streams out particulate matter because they're smelting iron and steel, and they're making pieces and they're chopping it up and they're making frames for automobiles and springs and all kinds of things like that. You know what? They have a really large IT support department. They have like 50 people working there. And so it goes. So, how could an IT support department benefit a manufacturing institution or healthcare or education or retail? I mean, Walmart. Walmart got to be the kind of company it is because they invested heavily in IT. They were an early adopter of information technology. Okay, think about those things. And let's take a break. So, stand up, walk around.